Hello. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Sarah. I'm currently the head of mobile design at Discovery South Africa. I look after a team of about 20 designers, and we're responsible for the research, UX, and UI design for the customer-facing app. I've been attending this conference since 5 years ago when it first began. It's such an awesome opportunity to be able to share my experience with you today. Thanks so much to Farai and the PixelUp team for allowing me the opportunity. Never in a million years did I think that I would be good enough to be here amongst a group of phenomenal thought leaders, both local and international. In fact, that kind of thinking and self-doubt is exactly what I'd like to talk to you about today. There's a Japanese art form named kintsugi, which is a method for repairing broken ceramics with a special lacquer mixed with gold, silver, or platinum. The philosophy behind the technique is to recognize the history of the object and to celebrate and illuminate the breaks, rather than hide them or throw the ceramic away. The art of turning failure or breaking into triumph and beauty. Today, I'll be comparing each and every one of us to a piece of ceramic pottery. We all begin in the same way and are made up of much of the same stuff, just like clay. Our environment, influences, and circumstances are the tools that begin to shape us into who and what we are. We all look different. Some of us are bright and colorful, others less so. Some of us are also more fragile than others, like a teapot or a piece of fine china. We all fulfill a different purpose in life. And if I had to choose a piece of pottery that defines me, it would probably be a sugar bowl, because I really love sweet things. Either that or a coffee cup, for obvious reasons. What would you be and why? A cereal bowl? A milk jug? A serving dish? Think about it. So a little more about me and my background. When I was fresh out of design school, I didn't understand much about my purpose and where my place was, both in my life and in my work. My self-confidence was non-existent, and I was filled with fear. If I could, I would have covered myself in bubble wrap, although this could be perfectly acceptable in times of a pandemic. But this would be to ensure that I'd never get chipped or broken by people's opinions, judgments, or situations that I was faced with. Instead, I tried my best to be unassuming, which is fairly difficult when you're 6 feet tall and sometimes opinionated and stubborn. If you're not back at work yet, your version of bubble wrap may look like this. Your camera's off, no picture of yourself on Zoom or Teams, and you're on mute. You could be doing anything or nothing on the other side of that call, and no one would know. The thing is that all of us are exposed to rejection, failure, and judgment towards the work we put out there. I used to dread the moments where I would need to share my work with my peers, manager, or clients because I felt like what I had to offer was just never good enough. They would finally find out that I had no idea what I was doing. I would defend my choices to the death and be unable to accept suggestions on how to improve my solution. I would walk away from reviews feeling defeated and offended, and more often than not, blaming others for how I felt. Does that sound familiar? Being a perfectionist on top of all of this was hard. People could say the nicest things about my designs or about me, in a feedback review, but that one little thing that was said about how I could improve would become my focus and obsession, and negated all of the good. I would use that as ammunition to criticize my abilities and self-worth. A classic scenario was my transition to design lead. I felt a desperate need to please everyone on my team, to make sure they liked me and to make sure they were happy and comfortable all of the time. In trying to get agreement and approval from all, I was unable to make decisions for fear of getting it wrong or being judged or disliked. It was a daily struggle until I finally came to the conclusion that this was an impossibility and exhausting. I needed to address my consensus obsession, and I would be making some tough decisions that my team members weren't happy with, and I would need to be okay with that. In fact, it was my job. It was time to put my big girl pants on. After years of unhealthy thinking patterns and ways of doing things, the cracks began to show. I believe that we all have multiple breaking points or moments of clarity in our lives, and some of them have been pivotal for me. It's in this place that I'm stripped of all of my defenses and able to see life from a different point of view. I would, however, need to sit with my broken pieces first though, until I could finally see clearly and rebuild or piece myself back together, just like Kintsugi. So what did my process look like for this situation and many others? I still use the following principles as much as I can every day, because being a nice human is a lifetime job, and it works. It really does. Step one is acceptance. Your expectation may not match up to your reality. It's in this space that I recognize that things don't always happen the way that I want them to. I will make mistakes. People will judge my work. I'll have to go back to the drawing board and try again. I won't get the feedback that I was looking for, or sign off from the business on my design, or even the approval from my teammates, or the position and salary that I felt that I deserved. The key is to accept the situation, person, or outcome exactly as it is in that moment. No more or no less. Sometimes a circle is just a circle, not a cylinder. Step two is surrender. The more we value things outside of our control, the less control we actually have. Surrender is not about giving up. The act of surrender, in fact, requires a lot more strength than it suggests, because it's actually about letting go of our expectations. The definition specifically states that to surrender is to cease resistance. It's about understanding the difference between what's within my control and what's not. So how do I know the difference? It's very simple. It's my attitude, my effort, my behavior, and my actions. That's it. Everything else in life is not up to me. If I continue to put my energy into areas outside of my control, I feel powerless and my suffering is merely exaggerated and prolonged. The past few months have been surefire proof of this concept for me. The words that ring true are fortitude and resilience. The pandemic has rendered us powerless and pushed many of us to our limits, both personally and professionally. Just when we think we can't possibly overcome any more adversity, we find it deep inside of us to push through, to see the light at the end of the tunnel. This may be easier for some than for others. Each of our own journeys are entirely unique, but acceptance is the key to an impossible situation. Step 3 is self-awareness. We fail and then we become better. Understanding these parts about myself, my insecurities and fears, and how they show up at work and at home, because wherever I go, I take myself with me. I've realized that I'm not perfect. I don't know everything. I get things wrong often. I can't please everyone all the time, and that's okay. In fact, it's more than okay. The beauty lies in the fact that I'm none of those things, and at the same time, I have so much to offer. I am perfectly imperfect, just like Kintsugi. I am strong in my weak places. What if I told you that we're all made to be broken? It's a reflection of what it means to be human. There will be moments when we need to sit with our broken pieces and find a way to make ourselves whole again. And that's how we become better versions of ourselves. We cannot fulfill our purpose covered in bubble wrap. And the more I understand and embrace about myself, the better equipped I am to handle challenges going forward. Step 4 is perspective. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So what do we do with these parts of us that exist, the good and the bad? In my case, it was easy to focus on my vulnerabilities and not my assets. I've just spoken about them for the past 10 minutes. I have to emphasize, though, that it's so important to recognize them both. And for that reason, I'll do that now. One of my assets is my drive and passion. One of my vulnerabilities is that I struggle to take direction and ask for help. Humility has helped me to put my ego aside and to harness the benefit of my asset. I can choose to look at situations from a different perspective and decide to act in a positive way. Change is hard and uncomfortable at first, but with willingness to practice and repetition, it becomes second nature. Picture your brain as a highway. There are many different roads that represent your choices and behavior on a daily basis. The more you choose to drive down a particular road, the more you strengthen that behavior or pathway. If you choose to think and say negative things about yourself all the time, that will reinforce your belief system. Choosing positivity, resilience, and having the persistence to keep trying will have the opposite effect. So choose wisely. Step 5 is open-mindedness. Open-mindedness means being respectful of and receptive to new and different possibilities. This includes being open to suggestions and ideas that we haven't previously considered, and perspectives that may be very different from our own. This speaks 100% to the giving and receiving of critique on my work. Remember earlier I spoke about my stubbornness and my defensiveness? This shows up here. As designers, we put so much of ourselves into our work that sometimes it's hard to detach the emotion when someone has something other than brilliance to say. This is something I work on consistently for myself and the designers on my team. Often I'll jump to conclusions instead of asking for clarification. So now I see it as an opportunity to learn, even if it's not delivered in the best way, and try to keep my emotions in check, listen, and be optimistic. Remember to say thank you to the person who gave you the critique. It may not have been easy for them either. Step 6 is humility. The opposite of humility is ego. Earlier on, I mentioned the multiple breaking points in my life. If I look back at absolutely every one of those points, it has been because I thought I could handle everything on my own, personally and professionally. Each and every time, I am reminded of how wrong I am. When I sit with the broken pieces of each ego experiment, I realize just how important it is to, number one, say no when I'm unable to take on too much work, and two, to be able to hand the reins over to someone else when I'm at the point where I've taken on too much. In leading a team of designers for an app that has multiple businesses under one umbrella, I'm physically unable to do everything myself. It is impossible, even though I tried for a long time and failed. Implementing an operating model which allowed for the amazingly talented individuals on my team to lead for their specific area literally saved my life, or saved my bacon, as my son puts it. Letting go of control and placing my trust in them was the key to my sanity. Relinquish control or burnout. Step 7 is teachability. So with this experience and outlook or understanding, I'm equipped to help others to do the same. I see so much of myself in the designers on my team and in the industry. There are so many similarities to the challenges I've faced on my journey. What better way to help than through my own personal experience? Just being here today and sharing this with you is part of that. I continue to learn as I see people grow and solve problems in new and different ways. I don't have all of the answers. And so I've surrounded myself with the most amazing mentors that I reach out to when I'm struggling to solve a problem. The more I learn, the more I realize that I have left to learn. Do not be afraid to fail or reach out to others. This is how we learn and grow. Teachability is the key to remaining humble. And so to recap, step 1, accept everything exactly as it is in that moment. No more, no less. Step 2, cease resistance. Understand when holding on to something is doing more harm than good. Step 3, be brave. Understand more about yourself and the impact you have on others. Step 4, be open-minded to suggestions and perspectives that may be different from your own. Step 5, stay open-minded to feedback. Listen and be optimistic. Step 6, relinquish control when you need to, or risk burning out. And step 7, ask for help and help others in return. Never stop learning. So when a situation that's not to your liking presents itself, ask yourself this question. What will I do with the poorly wrapped and initially repulsive present that I've been handed? Because beneath it is a gift of true value if you choose to see it that way. Will you choose to remain broken in a place of self-pity? Or will you allow yourself to be illuminated, unique, beautiful, and strong by embracing and celebrating your brokenness? just like a kintsugi artwork. Thank you.